What's up, everybody? It's Heat Override, and I'm ready to bring the pain this week. Oh, yeah. I have a special guest on, a guy that I've known for a very long time. So a guy that I went to war with in the pizza industry because, man, we would get 100 pie orders, and he'd be sitting there trying to get it out, bang that stuff out so we could get those deliveries and make that money. Introduce yourself, Jason. How you been?
Yo, this is Jason Bainey with Next Level Gaming. How's it going, everybody?
It's going good. It's going good. So now that we're going to catch up a little bit, tell me about Next Level Gaming. I seen you one day randomly handing flyers out. It's definitely have grown since then. I see the page growing, everything going on. So give me a little bit of where the passion came from and where this started.
Right. I mean, the passion initially came from in our family room growing up with video games.
Mhm.
My parents always made it a point to do activities with us. And as more options became available with the advent of the Atari 2600 and whatnot,
Yeah.
we would spend some quality time together. And I was fortunate enough to have both parents in my life. It was, very impactful for me and
Yep.
had my brothers and that. So we always had things to do. We always try to do everything together as much as possible, and we really have that. I really have that strong upbringing. But yeah,
Yep.
Rob, as we're boys coming up, we have so many interests.
Hmm.
And as we come along into our teen years and into our adult years, there's things that we shed, but obviously video games stuck with me. So I'm going to be a gamer till I die.
I'm
And
with
that's a
you on that.
passion of mine.
I love it, dude. I know that some people step away. People step away from WWE, WWF. They go AEW. They go, sometimes I like to call those phases of life, but this is one phase that never leaves our lives. The video games and being able to connect with your family. When I recently did those podcasts about my brother passing and everything like that, it just helped me reconnect on all those games that we used to play together and show how much that, because like you said, with your brothers, family, you have all those stories growing up. I played my dad in video games. My mom used to play video games. I mean, she played Super Metroid, games like that. And so I was able to game with them for many years, and of course, my brother. So it's great to hear that story and that passion is part that drives it. So what actually pushed you finally to actually get this next level gaming, make a logo and go forward?
First off, before I address that, sorry again for your loss, brother.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
And
man.
what was the question? Excuse me. Go ahead.
No, it's a, so when did you finally go all in? When did you just go, you know what? You looked at your wife and you're like, Dina, I am going in and I'm putting everything into this. I've got my shirt on like you're showing right there. So you have a catalog. What just said finally just set you over from just going, hey, I'm gonna have friends over on a night? Like, cause and then now to this big thing.
Yeah, you were over for one of those nights, weren't you? Yeah,
I
we
was.
moved. Yeah, for sure. Like I always love to have like gaming parties
Hmm.
at my place and invite friends over to play some games. I had like a couple of different rooms that we would operate out of. You
Yep.
know, really this kind of started with Street Fighter, to tell you the truth,
Yeah.
because um there wasn't really a place for anyone to go in Erie. And coming up too, I
Hmm.
was surrounded by sports, which I still love,
Yeah.
but there were plenty of nerds that didn't really have a place to go and, just do their gaming thing, It's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of it's kind of apropos to, you know, when PCs had their boom in the 80s and into the 90s,
Hmm.
that was just nerd stuff. That was just stuff for
Yep.
nerds to do. Whereas now it's a central point in everyone's life. It's the same way with this.
Yep.
Um, you know, with Street Fighter, that's a game I have truly loved. I played on the Sega Genesis, represent my 6-button controller. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least you had the six button. You didn't try to be a warrior and go with the three button. I mean, who are those barbarians?
For real. But I mean, nowadays you can, they got crazy ways that you can connect a Sega
Yeah.
Genesis controller to a Super Nintendo. But it started with that, and then when I came here to Erie, I'm like, what's holding me back from like hosting tournaments? What's holding me
Yeah.
back, truthfully, from like setting up a spot at the mall
Yeah.
when a tournament's going on? and inviting people to be a part of something. So I founded Fight Club in
Hmm.
2009. And for people concerned, it's not where we're actually fist fighting. This is
Yeah,
for this was a group of like-minded individuals that wanted to place an in-person place where people from all walks are welcome to come and participate and play in tournaments.
yeah,
It's competitive fighting games, the fighting
yeah,
game community, FGC, and also
exactly.
Smash Brothers is always going to be a tangent and a part of that. Which, well, while Smash Brothers isn't a true fighting game in the sense, a fighting game in the
Yeah,
sense of the word, Smash Brothers is always going to have like a connection with the fighting game community. I've
always.
always given the Smash players their equal respect, or I try to at least. But yeah, I would say the three core fighting games are Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken. Those series will
Yeah.
live forever, in my opinion,
Hmm.
and be like the foundation for all the other ones coming up. And they got a lot of really awesome games. I can't really list them all or go into like hardcore detail, but some of
Yeah,
these like anime fighters are ridiculous how smooth they look. They
yeah,
have Dragon Ball Fighter Z, that was
yep.
one that really
Hmm.
knocked it out of the park that supported a 3-on-3 team. I'm really big into Marvel myself,
Yep.
Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3. But before that, one of my 5 desert island games is Marvel versus Capcom 2.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That game really, that was like one of those things that just set the next standard. So when you
I
brought up
mean,
bringing friends together and
Magneto
Street Fighter,
represent. You can't see it under here, but I got my
uh,
Magneto shirt on underneath. So
yeah. So when you brought up Street Fighter 2, that was like the big thing. So when I rented that for the Super Nintendo first day that we rented it, man, like it was like friends that I ain't seen for a minute came out the woodwork. There was at least 15 people in my living room, all just passing the controller around, learning all the things. Cause we didn't have joysticks. At least I didn't have a joystick at that time. So
yeah.
for me, it was just like passing that, the Super NES controller, boom, boom, boom. We all set up with this, where, cause I change it, which is really funny because are you a guy that changes the button configuration? I can't remember. Or do you keep it the
I
same where
always
it's
do. It's because of this reason. Okay.
okay?
Um, you know, coming up, I didn't really have an arcade to speak of in my hometown in
Hmm.
Indiana. But as soon as I moved to Terre Haute, I lived in the arcade. X-Men versus Street Fighter. That was one that I'm always going to remember, and
Hmm.
that has a close personal spot in my heart.
Yeah.
Um, and with that is the button layout. You have all kinds of different button layouts. You have hitboxes. You have ergo. Our hand is naturally in an arc,
Yes.
but I grew up with and was accustomed to the original six. So straight across, you know,
Yep.
weak, medium, uh, weak,
Heavy.
medium, and heavy punch, weak, medium, heavy kick. Essentially,
Yep.
they have correct names, but I'm not gonna,
Yeah. Every
it's
game
cap.
changes. So
Yeah, for sure. But
so
because of that, like any of the fight sticks I get, I always orient them so it's the original six format. And plus, too, I'm a
mhm.
little barrel chested, so like having the buttons too close to the stick, I feel like I'm cramped in my own, on my own
Yeah.
lap or whatever. So
And that's something that's always been, one thing you pride yourself on is that you not only you playing on those controllers that you just described, but also being able to build them. And that's
sure,
something that I always thought that was really good. So like for me, of course, it would be the Super NES controller. And then we would pull it in, we would do the punches we would do the
yeah.
kicks on the thing. So it'd be L,
It,
Y, and B would be the kicks, and then the punches would be on the outside.
and again,
So
too, as you're using it more and more, you get accustomed to it. As you practice with it, you're getting accustomed to that setup.
mhm.
Not only the controller, but whatever the display latency is. These days that's an important thing.
Yes.
With back in the day, it was all CRT, so which they consider to be like 0 point for display lag.
Mhm.
Not to nerd out too much about it, but
No, I
it's
know what
it's
you
all
mean.
it's about the interaction you connect with that setup. Your
Yes.
screen, controllers. It's what you get accustomed to, what you come up with. For
Mhm.
me personally, I always felt like it was a hindrance to have shoulder buttons and to try to like move my thumb and press a shoulder. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it
like
looked
when you
like
do
I
the
was like
light
cocking
punches.
a gun or something. And
Yeah.
it's always like, the face buttons were always a priority to me. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like these are the redheaded stepchildren are on the
Yes,
left
it
and right
is.
shoulder. You know what I mean? Like, and
No,
then as
yeah.
soon as I had the ability to have like six buttons across, I was in heaven. It's
Yeah.
perfect, you know.
And it sets it up because, like, for you, you're able to take that from your home and you're able to translate to the arcade. Whereas, like, someone
For
like
sure.
me, I couldn't do that. So I had to go back. I had to go from the arcade, which once the Street Super or, Street Fighter 2 came out, the first one, that
Hmm.
one kind of set me back when I went. So then when I went to you, like you said, your house, or I went to an
Sure.
arcade, I had to have a learning curve. So that
Well,
was different.
what's interesting is that, and I'm always jealous about the arcades in Japan. A lot of those
Yeah.
had controller ports. So you have your
Hmm.
Tekken machines, right? I know for a fact Tekken 3 had a version of that machine that not only had a PlayStation 2 port that you could
Yeah.
plug in a PlayStation 2 controller to, but you could also had a Sega Saturn port, which had the 6 buttons across as well. And
Yeah.
it's well renowned as being, as far as a fighting game pad, you know, one of the best.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
Rob, to get back to your original question, what made me go all in?
yeah.
Well, so I had been putting in volunteer work essentially, and
At the Fight
as
Club.
I had my first kid in Illinois. We moved here. We started kind of having like these parties and stuff. When my second kid, Amber, came along, I decided I had a long talk with the wife, and I decided that any time away from family needed to be compensated.
Yes.
It's great to have volunteer work. I did a lot of free work in the community. I purchased,
Hmm.
monitor upon monitor, console upon console, along with
Hmm.
the help of my partner at that time. And
Hmm.
I got to the point where I was accumulating so much gear, and it wasn't until I did work in Buffalo helping them. I did work at Tech. I did an event at Techo Showcon where I helped them with their tournament. But it
Hmm.
wasn't until I went to Cleveland and helped my good friend Chris Hatala, which, by the
Okay.
way, he's one of those old heads that play Third Strike, and that's making a comeback. That's going to be at Evo this year, by
That
the way.
is. That is.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
I've been hearing
And
that.
in the fighting game community, he's known as Galleon. He's world known for running Super 2 Turbo tournaments.
Okay.
And
Okay.
when I was doing work with him, he's like watching me load all this gear and load all this gear into my van. He's like, Jason, you have like 3 times the amount of gear I have. Like, you should really consider going into business for yourself. And this is the type of business that he's doing, as well.
It's
So,
awesome.
he does like party entertainment, bar mitzvahs, and
Hmm.
barcade transformations. And I just, decided that I needed to study up, decided what I needed to do. Um, it wasn't until 2017 that I was speaking with the good folks at Erie Promotions that put on the most legit Comic Con for Erie, PA,
Yeah.
Comic Con Erie, that we came to terms, and they said, listen, you actually need to become a business before we can pay you. And
Okay.
so that's when I filed for my fictitious name. And I do own Next Level Gaming in Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So so
Yeah, I
that's
see that.
so that's that for the rest of history.
That's
So
awesome.
so as to what Next Level Gaming actually is,
Hmm.
next Level Gaming is esports, but as far as like the day to day, and what I earn bread from is
Hmm.
party entertainment. So birthday
Yep.
parties, barcade transformations. I've actually done a nerd bachelor party before. It's a dance party.
Yeah.
I have over 20 arcade machines that I can bring, and
Hmm.
most of these machines have been modified from the standard parts that come with them to
Yeah.
industrial grade parts, from commercial grade to industrial,
So you
like
got to
the,
make
the
that move.
same. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the buttons are the best that they can be. The controllers are the best that they can be.
Hmm.
My Street Fighter cabinet actually has industrial Lorenzo joysticks in them with
Yeah.
the DX44 cherry micro switches for the buttons, just like you would feel in the arcade. Like,
Yep.
everything is as authentic as it possibly can be.
And I mean, that puts everything together. I mean, just a lot of people go, well, I'm going to buy this cheap product and I'll buy a lot of cheap product. But like, even when it goes back to like some of like my car parts, if you buy an aftermarket part or more of like a
Mhm.
racing part, you're gonna get a lighter part that lasts longer. So for something like in gaming with that much, some people push a little harder than others. Some people
Yeah,
get mad and it's like, hey, let's not hit the buttons. But to have a
yeah.
stronger button up against someone maybe hitting it could take, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of those blows as opposed to one or two, and now you got to fix something.
Yeah, for sure. And it's that attention to detail and investing in the better products I mean, you can save money here and there where you can, and I get it, but when it
Yeah.
comes right down to it for performance, you
Mhm.
know, if uh, you know, that's why it's called next level gamings, because I've paid attention to those details
Yep.
and I've invested in the products, you know, that are higher quality.
Yeah, and that's because you care. You want to give, like you said, you want to make sure that control. So if someone goes, "Well, hey, the controller was off," no, you have the best. You have better than the best. You go to a regular arcade, you're not going to get what's in my machine because what's in my machine is better than what's in there. So therefore, you have no excuse. You're going to have the best equipment to perform the best you can that day in your fighting games.
Right.
So, so what games are you into right now a lot? Like, I mean, of course, it's got to be some kind of fighting game because, you got to stay, got to practice
You
and
know,
stuff like that.
to be honest, I'm kind of getting up there in age, and sort of the old man sets in a little bit. Like, I just want to. Sometimes I just want to sit back and play StarCraft on the N64 for hours,
Yeah.
or like when I get off of work, I have a Miss Pac-Man machine that is in
Hmm.
my downstairs bedroom
Oh,
that I can just as I'm like coming in the door, I can
yeah.
go and play that, or I can switch over to Dig Dug, and Dig Dug is like one of my all-time favorites.
Dude, that's crazy. I don't think I actually know that, but you bringing it up right there. Actually, I just listened to a Talk is Jericho episode where he had Billy Mitchell on. And I was like, holy crap. So I had to listen to it because, of course, that was kind of like, you and then bringing up the King of Kongs. And they talked about that and about the whole little, the feud that they had between him and Mr. Awesome. And then being able to actually meet the creator of Pac-Man. And he was like, that was one of the things that was just really crazy. And then he talked about some of the tournaments he had. I think he mentioned one last year where he actually won it, beat the last year champion, but his son was third. So it was one of those things to where he's actually been able to make that. And he said the same exact thing you said about keeping family together and being able to game and things like that. I don't know if you kept up on it, but when you just said that whole Pac fan and Dig Dug, he brought up Dig Dug and he brought up Galaga and things like that. It just made me think about
Sure.
that whole podcast, man.
To be honest, like Galaga wasn't my game coming
Yeah.
up, and I didn't even know about the two ships until this arcade one up craze was hitting the market,
Hmm.
and when I finally got one, I'm like I realized how to I learned how to do it. It's pretty interesting. That happens to be one of my daughter's favorite games as far as the old school arcade games. So
Yeah, I was a Galaxian guy. I liked Galaxian. You're going to hear Missile Command all the time, things like that.
sure,
Those are just games that we all played a lot. And, those, because it goes back to the roots. And I think that a lot of people, and that's what, Billy was saying to Chris, was that, when you talk about all this gaming and he looks at his son and playing COD, and he's just like, I can't keep up with these kids nowadays because he said, I had a joystick and one button. Now you have 10 buttons, you have pressure sensitive and all this stuff. He said, I just kind of keep to my old school stuff. So that's kind of like, it's really nice
sure.
to see that happen and talk about that because that's something we both have in common.
But yeah, if I had to list desert island games, it would be in no particular order. Okay,
Okay.
StarCraft for N64 because I just
Hmm.
love the feeling of that controller in my hand, no matter how much slowdown there is.
Yeah. Yep.
Marvel versus Capcom 2,
Hmm.
Worms Armageddon for the
I knew
Sega
you were going to say
Dreamcast.
worms. I knew you loved that game.
Yeah, Ultra Street Fighter 4, and I don't know, Marvel 3 has a good place in my heart too. But when they
Hmm.
changed the physics in the game from Marvel 2 to Marvel 3, I had a hard time adapting to that, and I was just getting my butt kicked.
Hmm.
And it's pretty much like there's ways to stop it, but uh, when they start combos on you, when these kids are starting combos on you, you might as well like grab a hold of some handles and just hang on for the ride because like it's
It
it's
is.
it's it's a difficult pill to swallow.
No, I was playing. I just randomly loaded up Mega Man X last night and started playing. And man, at the end of that, plus being in that tournament last week, and then of course just my normal job, dude, my hands were hurting at the end of that. I was like, dang. But
Yeah,
when you talk about desert island games, for me, I have so many games. So like Final Fantasy 6 would definitely be one of those games. I'm gonna go Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, of course, as being one of those games. And then the other
yep.
ones I would go Secret of Mana, of course, too, because if for some reason anybody else washed up on that shore, if maybe two other people washed up on that shore, I know I got a three-player game to play and that game that I love a lot. So,
Yeah.
but it's games like that, and that's one thing that I've been doing a lot of is getting into that video game music community, the VGM community with the Messenger who does, he's an Erie podcaster that does that show. And with him, I met this guy Martyrist and I met Professor Tom and all these other guys, and they just talk about games. They talk about the chip tune sets. They talk
Sure.
about things I never knew about that, like you probably are accustomed to, because me, I was like, video
Yeah.
game, bang, put it in, boom, play. And they talk about all the difference and how the actual, I didn't know. I always thought that the Super Nintendo just sounded better than the Genesis, but the Genesis sound chip was actually better than the Super Nintendo. I didn't know that.
Yeah. The thing is with the Sega Genesis, it's about how you program and use it. Like Yuzo Koshiro was an amazing composer. And back when Streets of Rage 2 released, he actually had a Sega Genesis that he was using at the nightclub and playing the techno tracks off of that.
Yeah.
And it
Oh,
was
dude.
very popular at that time. The way music comes out of the Sega Genesis is pretty
Hmm.
amazing. Um, the sound effects, on the other hand, can be a little bit rough. Um, you know, what with the
Yeah.
gem and all that. Like there's episodes, man. There's so much knowledge that I can impart.
Yeah.
GameSack, that's a good YouTube channel to check
Hmm.
out. You can check out all kinds of you just a basically like a rough take of like all these poor like they have entire episodes dedicated to uh you know software that pushes the console's
Yep.
hardware limits, and they
Hmm.
have some that are like make the console look bad, and there's some that make it look great.
Yeah.
um I the Super Nintendo has that amazing sound to it, and it's kind of like a surround sound, like an echo
Yes.
to it.
Hmm.
Like, and there's always the comparison about it though too, because like um things tend to slow down if you have like a shooter and that you're trying to play on the Super Nintendo. That would always bog down. Shooters are like were a
Hmm.
priority to me coming up,
I
and
agree with that.
not to mention too, when I got into college, it was like '94, right?
Hmm.
And so I had dropped. I believe it or not, I uh, I had dropped video games for a while.
Yeah.
Like the Sega Genesis launched in '89.
Yep.
I was with the Sega Genesis for those, two initial years,
Hmm.
and the Super Nintendo was just nowhere. Like it was left in Japan, unfortunately.
Yep.
And I had already made my choice at that point. When you're a kid, you can ask for one console for Christmas.
That's exactly it.
You're a little greedy kid if you're asking for more than one game console for Christmas. So
Exactly.
I went full arcade, I went full shooter and enjoyed it. And
Hmm.
if this is telling whatsoever, the best game voted unanimously to ever come out on the Super Nintendo was Super Metroid, and it
Yes.
released while I was in college,
Hmm.
while I had stepped away from the video game scene. So, Nintendo, I'm sorry, but you missed your opportunity to leave an impression with your 16-bit console. With me personally, you missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, so for me, it was a lot of that too. And I think it was like because a lot of my friends ended up getting the Super Nintendo. And then my buddy Dave got the Turbo. So then when you talked about that, of course, got me, I wanted to get the Turbo. So around that time, of course, I had the Super Nintendo, I had a Genesis, I had a Turbo Graphics 16 and an eventual 3DO. So,
Right.
and so that gave me like aero blasters and blazing
Sure.
lasers on the Turbo. And so I
Air
had
Buster on the
shooters like
Sega
that.
Genesis, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah. And then Axley on the Super Nintendo. And then you got Phalanx, which actually has a great soundtrack itself too. And when you have all these games and you talk about shooters, and they also had great racing games too. So I love
Oh
Top
yeah.
Gear, the Top Gear series, the music in the Top Gear series was just phenomenal. You have whole groups dedicated just to that music, remixes.
Sure.
It's just so much in it. In those years, well, I gotta say are the best years in music too. I mean, you had Dre's album, you had Cube's album, you had the Double Drop of
Hmm.
Final Frontier, and This Is How It Should Be Done from DJ Magic Mike. You had so many different things going on during 93 and 94, the system switchovers and just so much content that we were able to touch. And like you said, with the my 3DO and having Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, I was able to get that from Software Center, that hookup that allowed me to use my Super Nintendo controllers
For sure.
with my 3DO, which you played on.
Yeah, I did. We did play on it, and since then I've acquired my own 3DO, and
Oh
have
yeah.
like with all my other consoles
Hmm.
that don't inherently have like an RGB out for them.
Yes.
I've modded them for that, so I can
Hmm.
get crystal clear 480p and upscale it to 1080p,
Yep.
straight out of the 3DO.
That's exactly kind of what I set up too. So because I didn't want to overload, like for some reason the refresh rate on my TV isn't too bad, so I'm able to play my TurboGrafx 16 in that mode. Because what I
Sure,
did was I went online and I figured out how to bypass and not buy the turbo booster. So I took my actual turbo that I could actually, go coaxial or whatever, pull that in, or RFT, whatever, you know what I mean, and you put
sure.
that off to the side. So I took this one that my mom found cleaning one day, but that part was gone that went to the TV. So when I figured that out with the computer parts and I slid it all on there, I made that cord, I put it in there, and that thing runs great. I play Devil's Crush on it, and that's a game you have to be right on. So for whatever reason, this TV that I got right now works at that refresh rate. And it's I'm just okay. I'm just gonna be happy that I got that right now.
Yeah, that's
But
great. I mean, and there are scalers out there that you can just take a standard, even a standard, um, AV signal,
mhm,
your yellow, red, and white cables,
yep,
plug it in there, and then without any display lag whatsoever,
yep,
run it to your HD TV. Now it's your TV that's the issue
yes,
or not. Like, so you got to decide whether you want to commit. If you're
mhm,
all in for it, you can get yourself like a low latency monitor,
mhm,
or even they do have sub one frame TVs. I own a couple of them, a couple of 55s and a
yeah,
51
mhm,
that are sub one frame. And for those that don't know, sub one frame just means it's less than a frame of latency.
yep.
And in speaking in frames, not milliseconds, because some players get them confused, and some Smash tournament players, they'll think that like a millisecond is a frame, and they'll blame that for the reason that they lost their tournament or match or whatever.
No, I agree. It's just like it's just why I can't play like Madden online, because if they're got that dude or you get those guys that mess with the cord, I'm a timing person. I'm gonna step back, drop, pump fake, go. Right. And if
Sure.
any of that is any kind of lagged at all, I cannot play. I just can't. And it's just like I'm like, all right, well then I don't. I don't do it because there's no reason for me to do it if my mind's gonna operate at that speed and I cannot, allow the computer, the TV to, or the latency with the internet being part of that to be at my best, then there's no reason for me to play.
So 60 hertz is, 60 frames per second, right?
Hmm.
So a frame lasts 16.66 milliseconds.
Hmm.
So any combination in your chain between whatever controller latency you might have and your display, the time it
Hmm.
takes for the signal to actually come up here on screen
Hmm.
can is contributive to the display lag. Even the PlayStation 3's version of Ultra Street Fighter 4 versus the Xbox 360's version of Street Fighter 4 had three more frames, introduced three additional frames of latency,
And that means a
which is
lot.
why at major tournaments they in a large sweep they
Mhm.
converted 100% over to Xbox 360 at that time.
Yeah. And like you said, that's a big thing. And it just, you need that, especially when you enter a tournament like this. And a lot of them have entry fees. So if you're paying $5, $10, $50, $100, I mean, when I go to a karate tournament, it was $80. I could do 5 events, but because of the way I train and everything, I had 3 events open up to me. So, it's kind of what you can throw in. And, like what you said, when you run these events, you could have like, if this game's 10, this game's 10, but if you buy 2 events, you charge maybe you give a discount of eight, you just go $18 and you're able to get
Sure.
into both those tournaments. And another thing that I bring up is during your tournaments, you've always been big on the 2 loss thing. And this goes back to people losing and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. When I run a tournament, I like to do a double elimination. This gives the player at least two chances to get their money's worth in a match.
Yeah.
So, there are many factors to this. Some people don't perform as well in person, but it's, something that you have to get over.
Yep.
If you want to have a true competition, um, you can do online tournaments all the live long day, but when
Hmm.
it comes down to proving something, to proving to yourself that you're the best, or proving, you know, that you can compete, or maybe you're just there for the experience, having an in-person event is always going to far exceed the experience you would have online, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And And that's why getting together and bringing people together for those sort of things is what you're looking for and what you do with Next Level Gaming. It's to
Yeah,
do that and to, be at birthday parties to get so much bigger. So that's why I wanted to have you on. And when I saw
for
that missed
sure.
call from you, I was like, heck yeah, man. I was like, this is perfect. I've been like this big video game music thing, like I was telling you about. So why
Sure.
not just add more? And I've been interviewing a lot of these people. This is just part of it. And I've been concentrating on the hometown because I wanted to bring more eyes to our hometown.
For sure, for sure. Um, and just to be clear too, like Next Level Gaming as it exists now, it's two separate things. There's esports, which I love to host tournaments. I do a tournament at Comic Con every year,
Hmm.
um, for Smash Brothers and for some fighting games, and that's what people have come accustomed to.
Hmm.
People who I don't like, you know, they have heard tell about the tournaments that occur at Comic Con, and then once a year, Next Level Gaming does its own independent tournament, which is called Rust Belt Showdown. So we've
Yeah.
invited uh, players from Detroit, Toledo, Ohio. We're trying to reach Sandusky currently,
Hmm.
Canton, Ohio, Cleveland, Youngstown area, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. So pretty much the entire Rust Belt region is welcome to come.
Yep.
And we're trying to. Last year we had 60 attendees. This year we're trending for higher.
Oh,
Hopefully we reached the mark that we're wanting to have. We're hoping to bring it, build it bigger and bigger each year.
yeah.
So that's something I'm really looking forward to,
Hmm.
and preparing for now. It takes weeks of preparation for some of these things,
Yeah.
but
That's actually
yeah,
huge because that, coming down to where we start winding things up here and stuff. I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the Rust Belt Championship and also going forward with how you can actually, if this is your big tournament or say your WrestleMania of tournaments, how you can go for you knew I was going to get a wrestling comment in there.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
It's like the Super Bowl for the Browns or something. I don't know.
yeah, you can actually, maybe introduce like another like a SummerSlam event or things like that. Do you have any ideas of investing into those? And then I also want more people to be out there to know that they can go for this Rust Belt Championship or to find you on Facebook right now. So that I want to really get into that because there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in that.
For sure, for sure. Do you have the links that you're gonna like associate with this podcast then?
Yes, yes. I'll have all your links underneath my what's it called? My show notes and everything. Yeah, you'll all be there.
Well, just a few things about it is Mortal Kombat, we're trying to build that up. I have an agreement with Warner Brothers
Hmm.
for promotion. So anything that my friend Cujo Katie tweets on there is going to be amplified by Warner Brothers.
Nice.
There's just certain restrictions. Like I can't put on any of the promotional material. This is supported by Warner Brothers.
Exactly.
Whereas with SNK, I was able to pretty, it was not as hard of a process as I thought it was going to be to communicate with SNK and tell
Yeah.
them that I'm having a King of Fighters tournament.
I was gonna say
Uh, and they put it out there like, and I actually have like the official like supported by SNK logo with it. It is they're doing retweets for us, and you know there's through their
that's
social media channels. So just one by one, we've reached out to the different companies. We've gotten responses from some, but not all.
that's awesome.
Um, this tournament, speaking of like
Hmm.
controls and what you're accustomed to, and maybe adapters and that, when we start to bridge into that, this tournament is a very bold move. I have 8 Xbox Series S.
Hmm.
We're running Tekken 8 on it. Pretty much all of Saturday is being run on the not the Smash side, obviously that's Nintendo, but
Hmm.
is being run on Series S with Brook adapters that allow you to use a PlayStation 3 controller, a PlayStation 4 controller, a PlayStation 5 controller. You can even
Hmm.
use a Wii Pro controller on it if you were feeling
Ooh,
froggy. Like you
yeah,
can use whatever you want on these systems with these adapters.
that's
So
great.
I basically, it's not like a hey, use it if you need it. I actually have dedicated adapters to each setup for this.
Yep.
Um, so for that tournament weekend, um, it's a pretty full roster, but I can tell you, Mortal Kombat 1 is the very first tournament kicking it off. We're going to be streaming that from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, um, it it's a bunch of different games, but
Mm-hmm.
we aim to stream the top three in
So
each
Mortal
tournament. So when
Kombat's.
we get down to like losers finals and winners finals,
Mm-hmm.
so we got Mortal Kombat, KOF
Yep.
15, Smash Brothers Melee,
Mm-hmm.
it's Guilty Gear Strive,
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate, Street Fighter 6. That's Saturday. And then
Yeah.
on Sunday is a bunch of fan favorites. So this is a 2-day event. Yeah,
Two
so
days
this is
event.
April.
I was like, this is 2 days.
Yeah, so April 20th is the first day that I mentioned. April
Mm-hmm.
21st, we're going to have Killer Instinct.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Dragon Ball Fighter Z, or some
Mm-hmm.
people just call it Fighters with a Z.
Fighters. Yep.
My friend Rob Paskey likes to say Super
Super
NES
Nez.
with a Z.
Nez. I do.
But yeah, we're gonna have Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3, Tekken Ball. So in Tekken Ball, you actually like you have your two Tekken players,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a ginormous beach ball that you're trying to hit at each other.
I remember this.
And then
That used to be hilarious.
we have Ultra Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
These are a lot of these are kind of like the fan favorites.
Yep. Yep.
But then Tekken 8 is going to be the grand finale of it. That's
Okay.
going to be on Saturday. Or
Woo.
no, that's going to be on Sunday the 21st.
Man, you make me want to go
So
get that game.
so Mortal Kombat 1 confirmed. This is new information. We haven't posted it yet.
Mm-hmm.
$300 pot bonus.
Woo.
Smash Ultimate has a $500 pot bonus.
Uh-oh.
Street Fighter 6 has a $500 pot bonus. And Tekken 8 on Sunday, the grand finale of the weekend, has a $1,000 pot bonus.
Hey, if
We
the
do
people.
we have players coming from Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
New York.
Ooh.
We got, I'm hoping to get the Michigan guys here. We have players coming from Youngstown, Ohio, Pittsburgh. The Buffalo crew
Mm-hmm.
is very well known.
Yep.
You know, Joey Fury, he's world known for Tekken, and he hails from Buffalo.
Yeah.
This guy's a legend. I don't
Uh-oh.
know if he's going to show up or not. We'll see.
I'll have
It's
to hit
kind of
up
a
my
we'll see.
Buffalo guys. They do something kind of like you out of Buffalo. And they the Game Heads United guys, they kind of do something like this. And they always have tournaments too. Maybe some of the when they see this, maybe some of those guys will come down too. You never know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
we got players coming from Rochester. We have
Mm-hmm.
at least one coming from Attack from All Sides in Syracuse. So we'll see.
Yeah,
This is
it's awesome.
something that I hope, if it's anything like last year, we had very low attendance except for the last week. And
Yep.
then the attendance just kind of like blew up. People
Mm-hmm.
decided they finally wanted to go, and then
Yeah.
it just blew up there in the last week. So we're already at 25 or 26 attendees for the tournament weekend. So
Oh, see, that's awesome. All right. Well, it was great catching up with you and everything, man. And I want to thank
sure,
you for coming on and representing Next Level Gaming. Everything you did and everything, just seeing the whole dream and just working with you and hearing all the different stories about
for
you
sure.
talking about this. I know how much passion this is, and there isn't a better guy I know
Yeah.
in the industry that can try to put this passion out.
Yeah,
So thank you.
there's the fighting game stuff, but for the day to day, if you guys need a party, if you
Yep.
guys want to have great party entertainment, I have 2-player games, 4-player games, six
Yep.
player games, 8-player Smash Brothers, and even 10-player Bomberman. And you want to have something fun, you can hire me for your next indoor or weather permitting outdoor event, and I
That
can
is.
make a really special occasion occur for you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jason. You have a great day, brother.
You too, man.
All right. Peace.
Peace.